welcome back to the Rollup. We have a very special guest. Today we are talking to Tencent from Silo Finance. We're going to talk about all the markets that are on Silo right now. Going to take you guys through the app, getting back to what we do best, which is actionable DeFi content. So you already see on the screen here, we have some of the more well-known protocols, especially in the Arbitrum ecosystem. And Tencent is going to take us through the expert of Silo, and we're going to learn how to use Silo for some alpha and how to find an edge in this particular DeFi app. So Tencent, before we go through Silo, maybe you could tell us how you got started in crypto and how that led you to Silo Finance. Thanks for coming on, man. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. So I mean, I got started in crypto. I think it was 2016 or maybe 2017. I started actually as I was doing peer-to-peer Bitcoin transactions. So I was helping onboard people more or less, and getting a small commission on top of it. Just kind of freelancing, doing my own thing. And then it took a step back for a while, up until the most recent bull run. At which point I had a lot of friends in the space who brought me in, and we did really well. And I ended up joining up on a fund, and then also working with a few DAOs like Bancor, PairSwap, AP Wine, all those guys, and actually Silo as well, right? And yeah, I mean, the Silo team has always been really impressive to me. The whole concept was so obvious to me that it was such a great solution. And eventually, I met up with the team in real life, just over talking with them on Discord, and then finally met up, and they offered me a position as the head BD.
Awesome.
And so I've been here for about a year now, probably, but it's been awesome.
Cool, very cool. So I think those are probably the best ideas when it's just so strikingly intuitive. Like it's like, wow, just give it to me already. So it's not like you have to think about it. It just makes sense. So what was the light bulb moment that hit you on Silo, and then we can take a deeper look.
I mean, it's the risk isolation, right? Because I was working at some of these like smaller protocols, more in like a DAO member function, but passing all these proposals, and then I did like try to do BD relating to lending with a lot of protocols, and you go and you talk to Aave, you go and you try to talk Compound, and well, the problem is Aave and Compound can't list you, and the reality of the matter is Aave and Compound will not be able to list the majority of all tokens ever, because the way that their model works is essentially, it's great for efficiency, but essentially rather they take all of the assets that you think of that can be used as collateral and be borrowed, and they put them into one pool. You can think about it. So the problem with that is the moment you introduce a bad asset into that pool, right, that it puts all of the other assets at risk. So it socializes the risk between all depositors. And this is even true with their isolation mode. It's just a capped risk, but it still gets socialized across the entire pool. So you are largely relying on governance, and you have to keep up with it, right? With asset listings, and we've even seen delistings happening recently. And with Silo, that's not a problem. So the thing with Silo is we do risk isolation. So rather than create this one large pool with all the assets, we create an individual pool for every asset. And the advantage of that is that since every pool is like essentially its own mini lending protocol, they're not directly connected. So if I launch like Pepe lending markets tomorrow, it doesn't have any effect on all of the other markets that we have. So Silo has this unique advantage.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And it's true to the name. Like the risk is siloed, which makes it much more just secure in a sense, because the risk is siloed. but it's not as efficient. So um, the Aave module, like you said, socializes the risk. One way to think about it is uh, like a community health factor almost. Like Aave kind of has like one health factor, and that health factor applies to like all of the assets on Aave. Whereas like Arbitrum, like I'm just looking at the markets that you have up on your screen. Arbitrum's pool would have its own health factor, and then DopeX would have a different one. So it's like banks, and it's a opportune time to be kind of talking about this. Like um, Silicon Valley Bank, like it has its if it has more debt outstanding than its collateral and cash in the bank, it's insolvent, right? And on Aave, if one of those assets is insolvent, then all of them are. But in Silo, one of them could be insolvent and it wouldn't affect the other ones. Obviously, there's other risk controls that would prevent them from becoming insolvent, but it silos the risk so that an issue in one of those pools would not affect another one of those pools.
Yeah, and as a depositor, really, when you deposit, you're choosing your risk, right? So Silo also doesn't have any control over your funds. Our markets are actually immutable; they're non-upgradable. That's something that other lending markets don't do. The code can't be changed retroactively or upgraded. So where you have in Aave these huge lending pools where they can, one exploit ruins all of them. Here you come in and you say, hey, like I want to lend my USDC specifically to the Arbitrum market. Then I know that I'll be okay so long as Ethereum and USDC are fine, and so long as the Arbitrum token is fine, right?
Got it.
So I don't have to trust any of the other tokens on this list for me to deposit inside of the Arbitrum markets.
And it's not just an exploit, right? Like, for instance, you brought up Pepe. Like, if Aave listed Pepe and then it depreciated by 90%, sorry, Pepe holders, like it would bring the collateral value of Aave way down, potentially under the amount of debt that it had outstanding.
Right, and that's where liquidations come in. So I mean, once you reach like a certain buffer, it's called the liquidation threshold. This is common across all lending platforms. So let's say you deposit $100 of USDC and you borrow $50 worth of ETH, right? If the price of ETH rises up, it'll come up to the liquidation threshold, which is a percentage. So if you have $100 here, and let's say the liquidation threshold is 80%. Then once your debt is worth 80%, it'll take the collateral, but it'll put it up for auction, and then liquidators, outside liquidators, and our own liquidator that we do run as a last line of defense, will come in and they'll sell the collateral for the debt. Now there is risk in all lending markets, which is, how do you know that there is enough liquidity to sell that collateral for that debt, right? And so that's where there has to be some form of risk management, but Isolation tends to do a very good job at that because the pools are limited in size, and people are not going to deposit $10 million worth of USDC and and meme coin. Yeah,
yeah.
Well, they might in Pepe.
Right. Yeah, that market cap's way up. Yeah, but the risk isolation does let it lets you list markets with less liquidity. Whereas Aave is limited to only assets with a lot of liquidity, so that liquidators can sell the collateral into that existing liquidity and bring the health factor, if you will, the solvency back to normal. Cool. So let's degen around, my friend. Let's do some transactions on some of your most degen pairs.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to give you a quick rundown, if you look at the majority of all, we'll go through Arbitrum for the demo, but if you look at Arbitrum, like all of the other lending protocols, none of them have 90% of these markets. Like I think one of them has DPX. They're all starting to add Arbitrum, although we were first to market, which is why this is quite large. Nobody really lists Magic. No one lists GNS. Absolutely no one lists RDPX. And it's largely because they're unable to, right? And we also have a very, very good Oracle infrastructure. So we have support for multiple different types of Oracles and things like that. But yeah. And then we also try to, if we think that a market is unsafe, we do run like a little banner. We tell you like, hey, DEX liquidity has decreased significantly. Like maybe don't deposit in here. And we try to, keep users educated. We also have analytics. Oh, wait, how do you spell analytics? There we go. We have an analytics dashboard, and we try to keep track of Oracle prices and this is the wrong one. There. Let's look at our DPX. So we give you like the breakdown of like what's the market price and what's the Oracle price, because people don't know that actually market price and Oracle price can be different. Right. So this is a very well tracking Oracle, but for something that is lower liquidity, you can have some bigger disparities, which you can solve with lower LTVs and higher liquidation fees. But yeah, I mean, the core really use cases for lending markets, I would say I'd break them down into three, right? Well, four maybe, right? You have just depositing to earn, right? We do have some silo rewards also in some pools, you can see. And then the other three are shorting, longing, and borrowing to farm. So lending is actually the core building block of which shorts are built on, and actually leverage is built on. So you can leverage short and long any of these tokens so long as there's liquidity. I can give you an example, right? So you can come in here, let's say I deposit ETH. And this is actually a very cool feature also that we have. Borrowable deposit. So if you don't want to let your assets be borrowed out by others because you want to be able to withdraw at any time, or you're scared about any manipulation or something like that, for more risk adverse users, you can turn this off, and it'll make it so no one can borrow your deposit out. You obviously don't earn the deposit yield, but it's something to keep in mind if that's something you
Yeah, so
want or
someone
need.
should still borrow against their own deposit, but it only that's the only person who could
Well,
borrow
like
if wouldn't be able to.
let's think about like if you deposit like $10 million in Arbitrum, right, of USDC. If someone borrows out 5 million, then I'm not going to be able to pull out my full 10 million, right? I'm going to have to pull out 5 million first, and then the APYs will increase, and I'll have to slowly pull it out as people pay it back.
Right.
Whereas if you deposit protected, you can withdraw it at any time atomically.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, so 0.2 ETH. Let's put some ETH in there.
It's interesting. Like I might borrow, I might deposit some ARB because I want to keep the exposure, and then borrow USDC against my own ARB. And then I would be able to pull out all of my ARB if it's like not the borrower.
Yeah. Well, the ARB silo has enough liquidity that you're gonna have liquidity to withdraw anyway, unless you have some very chat size and someone's gonna come in and borrow it. But yeah, you can borrow against non-borrowable deposits. But yeah, this is how you set up a short essentially. You can either start as whatever you want to be like your main asset. You can use ETH collateral, or you can use USDC collateral. And then essentially you just borrow an asset like ARB, and all you have to do is actually you have to take this ARB token and then you have to sell it for USDC. And what that does, right, is you still owe 157 ARB tokens, but you can buy them back at a lower price because you already sold them. So you have a debt that's denominated in a token, and you sell it into, you sell the debt for stable coins or ETH if you're a trader that likes to trade with ETH as a benchmark. And then you just buy it back at a later point.
Nice. So that's
And
how you
that's,
could
yeah,
short. That's how you would short ARB.
absolutely. And you can do that with any of these markets. You can do the reverse as well, and that's a long, right? So if I instead, deposit the ARB and then borrow USDC, right? Then I'm taking stable coins and I'm buying more ARB. Then actually I'm holding twice as much ARB, you could say, with the same amount of money,
Yep.
which is how margin works.
Totally, right? Because if your ARB goes up, you would have double the profit, and then you could cash out, buy the USDC back, and return it to repay your loan.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. And we have very nice graph. You can kind of come over here and it'll give you a very simplified version and also give you the steps on how to set up a position like this. We have borrowing to short to leverage here.
Cool. So
Yeah.
I see the borrow to farm strategy as well. Is that like okay, so some ETH strategies you could farm, and then I also want to talk a bit about like the silo token. Um, so maybe we could run through like why someone would borrow to farm, and then get into the tokenomics of Silo.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could give you a great example for borrow to farm actually, because borrowing to farm is like my personal bread and butter. I've been doing it for many years, which is one of the main use cases that I was using Silo for prior as well as literally right now. But let me fix price. Cool. So borrowing to farm would be like this, right? I have ETH, right? And I want to hold my ETH. And I'm earning 2% yield on it right here by just depositing it, which is fine. But what if I want to earn more than 2%, right? And I don't want to buy more ETH. Maybe this is just as much ETH as I want to hold. So what can I do to actually earn more is I can borrow a stable coin, right? And then you can do something very simple, like you can put it on Curve, or you could put it in any other DeFi protocol, a stablecoin pool. Essentially, you can take the USDC and you can put it somewhere else that earns more, and then that just it heightens your yield to the point that you can get yield on any of the assets on the platform. A lot of these assets don't even have native yields. ARB would be one of them, right? But yeah, you can borrow it. I very much like our guys at Jones DAO. So this is God VPN. But you can do
So
something.
are you seeing like much on Jones DAO or on Curve, as far as like a profitable opportunity to farm? Like what are you personally like farming right now?
Well, so I have a position where I'm borrowing actually on mainnet. So on mainnet, if you see, we use USDC on Arbitrum, but on mainnet we use something called Zai, and Zai is our own stablecoin, and essentially it's a CDP stablecoin, so a collateral debt position backed stablecoin. So it's backed by collateral on the network. Majority is USDC, rep stake ETH, CDE. So this is like the underlying collateral for it. Our ETH as well. Love those guys. And Olympus as well, Ohm, and Geom. And obviously we have a ton of other markets, and then we spread out a little bit of backing to each of the markets as well. But the primary source of all the backing is up here. But yeah, so you can borrow out Zai, and you even see right here Zai, the little banner, it says Zai earns this amount. And that's because we have a incentivized curve pool paired with we own about 260,000 CVX. and we use it to vote on the pool consistently. That combined with some votes with supporters from the Frax ecosystem, we get 11 to 14% yield, depending on how much you lock for. You get the 11% for locking for 2 weeks, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and then for the 14%, I'm pretty sure it's a 1-year lock for Frax, and that has to do with their gauges.
So I could deposit ETH, like hold my same position, borrow some Xi against my ETH with and because I wouldn't sell my Xi for anything or use it to
Even
buy
if you
anything. I'm not taking
even if you
leverage.
did, if you did, Xi is pegged to $1, right?
Uh-huh.
So you're selling a stable coin, so you're just shorting the peg of Xi. You're still technically um, completely unexposed, even if you sell the Xi for something else. Although obviously, whatever you sell it for, if you sell it for more ETH, then you're long ETH, right? If you sell it for Wrap BTC, then you're long Wrap.
So if I didn't want to go long anything else and I just wanted to like earn the yield from farming, I could just take my Xi and deposit it into a Frax like Xi Frax LP or a Xi curve pool.
Yeah, exactly. You just come over here to Curve, and right here you can deposit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you just drop that in there. And we have actually some people building out some strategies to automate this and make it less gas intensive for users.
Cool.
Yeah, and yeah, we've got a lot of collaboration in the works.
Yeah. Interesting. So this is getting it looks like 9% in curve, and then you could boost it on convex if you bring your LP over to convex.
Yeah, exactly. In convex Frax.
And
It's
then
the Frax version of convex.
what's the oh, okay. And then what's the borrow rate on Sila?
On Xi?
Yeah, yeah.
It's low. It's right here. It's let's see, we can look by the highest, right? The highest is RPL. These guys, they like borrowing. So, but yeah, I mean, you can see like, on CDE, 5%. You're probably better off looking at the highest liquidity markets.
Okay.
If you use USDC, it's
So
only
if I
2.25%.
deposit USDC as collateral, I could borrow against my USDC. I could borrow Xi at 2.25%, and then go take it over to Curve and earn 9%.
Exactly, and actually, there is also a Yearn factory vault. So if you don't want to deal with the auto compounding, I mean, you don't want to like claim the rewards and put the cycle in back in, the whole ordeal. We do have yeah, these are the factory vaults. So what this will do is it will allocate it in between different pools. Obviously, it doesn't have very much liquidity right now, so that's why the APY is a little bit lower because it socializes the gas costs. But no, yeah, they do a great job. And then they have multiple strategies that they actually apply because we have multiple pools.
Yeah.
But yeah, and this is a good way to just set and forget, basically.
Yeah. That's interesting because it's almost like, especially if you're using the USDC vault or silo, like you don't have any exposure. You just deposit a stable coin, you borrow a stable coin, all your exposure is in stable coins, and you could earn 7% spread by borrowing at 2% and then lending it back out to Curve at 9%.
Yeah, yeah, and technically there's no liquidations also in the USDC market because it's a if you're familiar how like something like MEM works, it works like that in that the Xi in terms of the actual lending is pegged to the value of the dollar. And actually for the feed that we use USDC specifically because we're paired with them. This is after what happened with the whole USDC depeg scenario. We noticed that this was kind of like a flaw in the general system that not just us, but everyone was using. So we switched instead of using the USD pricing, USDC pricing, because that is actually our backing collateral, right?
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, so essentially they're using the same Oracle, so there's no way that they're going to get liquidated. unless you just let interest build up for a very long time.
Right. Right. So you would have to, or you, not that you would have to, but you would want to take some of your earnings. You know, if you're doing the 7% spread position with size, you would want to use some of the profits that you earn from that 7% to pay down the interest that you accumulate on the XI position from borrowing it.
Yes, but again, the interest rate is so low, and there is actually a buffer between how much you can borrow and the liquidation, which I believe is so the max LTV, max liquidation threshold 95.
Okay.
So you would have
it would
to
take like 2.5 years, even if
Yeah.
you borrowed like max to
Right.
go from to get liquidated. Okay, so that makes sense. That's super cool. Like, I mean, this is like DeFi Summer style stuff, but like in 2 years evolved, and now it's gotten much more complex. But also the opportunities are there. You just kind of got to know where to look.
Yeah, and I mean, something that's also very interesting with the other side of borrow to farm, right, is if you're someone that just holds stable coins, right? What you can do is you can actually deposit a stable coin and maybe borrow a high yielding asset, right? Well, this one, something that's like a good example would be maybe like, well, actually, I think DopeX is like a great example. DopeX, right? You can come in here, you can deposit USDC, you earn 3% plus 4.3%, that's 7.3%. And then you can actually borrow out DPX. DPX can be borrowed for literally 1%. And we have a lot of liquidity here. And a DPX can actually be put, although this is a little bit degen, right? Because there is some peg stuff going on, but you can put it in something like Plutus. Right, so you could put it in the DPX PLS DPX pool,
right?
And I believe it's something insane.
Yeah. Hold on,
Oh my
something
gosh!
insane is coming.
Well, let's see. Maybe they stopped the Nitro pool. Oh. No, yeah. See, PLS DPX 59%.
59%.
Yes, and this is with well, with no lockup. I believe this would be like 40. No, wait, no. Okay, no, 59% without lockup, up to 70%.
Wow.
Right, and that's on stablecoins because you're borrowing the DPX, so you're not exposed to the price. You're only exposed to the peg between PLS, DPX, and DPX.
Right, because you're borrowing DPX and then you're just depositing it. So you're going to have the same amount of DPX when you want to repay your loan. You'll actually have more because you're earning 59% more DPX APR.
And the only thing to keep aware of is, again, the peg, right? So PLS DPX tries to trade 1-to-1, but it can go under, right? But again, if you're more of a long-term person, it shouldn't be an issue because you're going to be earning such a massive amount.
Got it. Awesome.
Yeah,
please.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to add also, always be mindful of liquidations. Liquidations can happen, and liquidations can be expensive. So don't get liquidated. Don't max borrow. Use a healthy health factor. And don't let the liquidators take you.
Yeah, because they will.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, this has been really helpful. Thanks for joining. Before you go, maybe you could describe just kind of like the elevator tokenomics for CeeLo. Is it kind of like a bribery coin or a governance token? What's the view for it?
So, I mean, it is a governance token in that it does control certain aspects of the protocol. Again, the majority of the protocol is immutable, so it can't even be changed by the token holders. But it can edit things like interest rates, and it can whitelist oracles so that we can register them. But yeah, so it has governance capabilities. It obviously, we have a large treasury, which it governs. And then we do have a buyback. So we have, I think, 4 million of protocol owned liquidity for Zai. And then we also have around $1.3 million worth of CVX, I want to say. So we use the CVX to vote for Zai. We farm the Zai, and we literally earn back basically everything that we pay. And we use that also to bribe certain things. And then we also take the revenue and we use it to buy back the token. And that's actually how we support our incentives. So our incentives are not inflationary. We're not like printing tokens or taking them out of the treasury. They're coming purely through revenue. It's sourced by us buying the token off the market. These rewards that you see here and here and here and right there. But again, Silo V1's been live for 261 days, but we have been working on our V2, and that's where the big tokenomic upgrade also comes, along with the V2, which is a big architectural, and it's innovative. It's got a lot of stuff. But yeah, we will have essentially a VE model, and with some small tweaks that are to make it fit better with a lending protocol. Obviously, I'm not allowed to say very much about our
keep it under
V2.
wraps.
Yeah,
That's all right. We won't push you too far down V2. Keep a little secret sauce for the announcement. Hopefully we can do another video around V2, kind of explaining it to our audience, and then when it is live, do another demo of the V2 user experience.
absolutely.
That'd be awesome. So yeah, for anyone who's watching, this is CeeLo Finance. Be on the lookout for V2. Don't steal all of our yield. Use responsible health factors and don't get liquidated. Cheers.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Tencent.